The stars had never seemed so cold. High. Commander Zethros stood at the center of his bridge, his massive form casting a long shadow across the polished floor. He was 9 feet tall, covered in dark blue scales that had hardened over 3 centuries of life. His eyes, 4 of them arranged in a diamond pattern on his face, glowed with a soft orange light. They were the eyes of a predator, the eyes of a conqueror. Around him, the bridge of the Eternal Sovereign hummed with quiet activity. Officers moved between stations, their clawed feet clicking against the crystalline floor. The ship itself seemed alive, its walls pulsing with a gentle blue light that matched the rhythm of its ancient power core. This vessel had been grown, not built. It had taken 400 years to cultivate its crystalline hull, to shape its weapons, to perfect its systems. It was a masterpiece of Kethral engineering, and it was just one of 400 ships gathered in this remote corner of space. Zeth. Ross allowed himself a moment of satisfaction as he looked at the tactical display floating before him. 400 warships arranged in the traditional Dominion formation that had crushed every enemy they had ever faced. Battlecruisers, destroyers, carrier vessels, and support ships. Together, they represented enough firepower to burn a dozen worlds to ash. Today, they would only need to burn one. "Aye, Commander," his second officer called out. "The fleet has achieved final positioning. All ships report ready status." "Excellent," Zithros replied. His voice was deep and carried the weight of absolute authority. "And the human colony?" "Meridian 7 remains in position. Our scouts report approximately 200,000 humans on the surface. They have attempted to contact their homeworld, but our jamming systems have blocked all long-range communications." 200,000. Such a small number. Zethros had ordered the deaths of billions in his long career. This would barely register as a footnote in Dominion history, but it would serve a purpose. It would send a message. The humans have become troublesome in recent years. They had refused to accept their place in the natural order of things. They had pushed back against Dominion expansion, formed alliances with other weak species, and even had the audacity to establish colonies in space that the Kethrael considered their own. This could not be tolerated. The Dominion of Kethral had ruled this region of the galaxy for over 50,000 years. They had conquered 17 species, absorbed their technologies, and built an empire that stretched across 10,000 star systems. They were ancient when humanity's ancestors were still climbing down from trees. They were powerful when humans were learning to make fire with sticks and stones. And now these humans, these children of the galaxy, thought they could challenge the Dominion. Zethros felt his mandibles click together in amusement. The very idea was laughable. "Begin the approach," he commanded. "Slow and steady. I want the colonists to see us coming. I want them to feel the fear." The fleet began to move, 400 ships gliding through the darkness of space like a swarm of deadly predators. At their current speed, they would reach the colony in 6 hours. 6 hours for the humans to watch their death approach. 6 hours to pray to whatever gods they believed in. Zethros had learned long ago that terror was a weapon in itself. A quick death was mercy. A slow, inevitable approach was punishment. He turned to look out the massive viewport that dominated one wall of the bridge. The stars stretched out before him, cold and distant and unchanging. Somewhere out there, on a small blue world called Earth, the humans had no idea what was about to happen to their colony. By the time they learned of it, the ashes would already be cold. "High Commander, I have a question if I may?" Zethros turned to face his communications officer, a young Kethral named Thres. The younger officer was barely a century old, still new to the ways of war and conquest. His scales were lighter than most, a pale blue that marked him as coming from one of the northern regions of their homeworld. "Speak," Zethros said. The humans, Thress began carefully. I have read reports of their recent activities. They have been surprisingly resilient. Some of our outer colonies have reported strange encounters with human vessels. Ships that fight in ways we do not expect. Zethros made a sound that was somewhere between a laugh and a growl. Resilient? They are insects. They survive because we have not yet decided to step on them. Today, that changes. Of course, High Commander. I did not mean to suggest otherwise. The humans are young, Zethros continued, feeling generous enough to educate his junior officer. They have been traveling between stars for only 300 of their years. We have been doing so for 50,000. They have technology that is primitive compared to ours. Their ships are ugly blocks of metal. Their weapons are crude explosives and simple energy beams. They are nothing. Thress nodded, but there was still something uncertain in his eyes. The reports mentioned that they have defeated Kethril vessels in battle. Small engagements, but still. Luck, Zethros said firmly. Nothing more. A cornered animal can sometimes bite. That does not make it dangerous. That makes it desperate. And desperation is not a strategy. He gestured at the tactical display. Look at our fleet, young one. 400 ships. We could conquer their entire species with this force. We could turn their homeworld into a burning rock. They know this. That is why they have sent no fleet to defend this colony. They know it would be pointless. Thress bowed his head in acceptance. You are wise, High Commander. I am experienced, Zethros corrected him. Wisdom comes from seeing the universe as it truly is. And the truth is simple. The strong rule. The weak serve or die. Humans have refused to serve. So today, some of them will die. Eventually, they will learn their place. The hours passed slowly aboard the Eternal Sovereign. Officers changed shifts. Reports came in from various ships in the fleet. Everything was proceeding exactly as planned. Zethros had retired to his private quarters for a meal when the first alert came. He was halfway through a dish of prepared meat when his personal communicator chimed. High Commander, you may want to return to the bridge. He recognized the voice of his first officer, a veteran named Kreth who had served with him for over a century. There was something in his tone that Zethros had not heard before. Not fear, exactly. More like confusion. What is it? He demanded. A ship has just dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the system. A single ship. Zethros felt his mandibles click together. A human ship? Yes, High Commander. Our sensors confirm it is of human origin. One ship. Zethros rose from his meal, leaving the food half-eaten. They sent one ship against our fleet? So it would appear. By the time Zethros reached the bridge, word had spread throughout the Eternal Sovereign. Officers clustered around sensor stations, pointing and making sounds of disbelief. The atmosphere was almost festive. This was entertainment. Show me, Zethros commanded as he took his position at the center of the bridge. The main display shifted to show a magnified image of the human vessel. It was exactly as ugly as he had expected. A blocky, angular thing with no grace or beauty. Its hull was dark gray, scarred and pitted from what looked like previous battles. It was perhaps 1/10 the size of the Eternal Sovereign, a tiny thing that looked like it had been welded together from spare parts. The bridge erupted in chittering laughter. One ship? His weapons officer managed between gasps of amusement. They sent one ship? Perhaps they have come to surrender, another officer suggested. To beg for mercy? There will be no mercy, Zethros said. But even he could not keep the amusement from his voice. This is unexpected. I thought the humans were cowards, but this is something else entirely. This is stupidity. He studied the vessel on the display. According to the sensors, It was what the humans called a dreadnought, their largest class of warship. And yet it was still small compared to even a mid-sized Kethril vessel. "How many crew?" he asked. "Sensors indicate approximately 2,000 life forms aboard," the sensor officer reported. 2,000 humans. Against a fleet of 400 ships, each carrying thousands of Kethril warriors. The odds were so ridiculous that Zethros almost felt sorry for them. Almost. "They have courage," he admitted. "Stupid, pointless courage, but courage nonetheless. Open a communication channel. I wish to speak with whoever commands this vessel." The communications officer worked his station, and after a moment, the display shifted again. Now it showed the interior of the human ship. The bridge was nothing like the elegant space of the Eternal Sovereign. It was cramped, functional, filled with hard angles and harsh lighting. And at its center stood a human. It was a female, Zethros noted. Smaller than a Kethril child. She had dark hair pulled back from her face and eyes that were an interesting shade of brown. She wore a uniform of dark blue, simple and undecorated. Her face showed no expression at all. "I am High Commander Zethros of the Dominion of Kethril," he announced, letting his voice carry the full weight of his authority. "You have entered a restricted military zone. Identify yourself." The human woman said nothing for a moment. She simply looked at the display, at the image of Zethros and his bridge, with an expression that was impossible to read. "Captain Elena Vasquez," she said finally. Her voice was quiet, steady. "United Earthship Prometheus. One ship?" Zethros could not help himself. The laughter bubbled up from somewhere deep inside. Around him, his officers joined in, their chittering filling the bridge. "You bring one ship against the might of the Dominion fleet?" The human, this Captain Vasquez, did not react to the laughter. She did not flinch or look away. She simply waited until the sounds had died down. "I am here for the colony," she said. "Meridian 7 is under Earth's protection." This brought fresh waves of amusement. Zethros had to raise one clawed hand to silence his officers so he could speak. "Under your protection?" he repeated. "Look at your sensors, human. Count our ships. Do you see 400 vessels? Do you see the firepower we command? You cannot protect yourself, let alone a colony." Nevertheless, the word hung in the air between them. Such a small word. Such a human word. "Turn back," Zethros said, deciding to show what he considered generosity. "Watch from a distance as we demonstrate the price of defying the Dominion. Consider it a lesson. Your species is young. You can still learn your place in the galaxy." "My place?" For the first time, something flickered in the human's eyes. Something that Zethros could not quite identify. "Your species has potential," he continued. "In time, perhaps thousands of years, you could become useful servants of the Dominion. Do not throw that future away with pointless heroics." The human woman was silent for a long moment. When she spoke again, her voice had not changed. It was still quiet, still steady, but there was something underneath it now. Something cold. "You know what I find interesting about your kind?" she said. "You have ruled this part of the galaxy for 50,000 years. You have conquered species far older and more advanced than humanity. You have never known defeat." "Because we are superior," Zethros replied. "It is the natural order." "No," Captain Vasquez said. "It is because you have never faced anything that could truly threaten you. You have grown comfortable, complacent. You see a single human, ship, and you laugh because you cannot imagine any other response." The amusement was fading from the bridge now. Something about the human's tone was unsettling. Even Zethros felt a flicker of unease, though he pushed it aside immediately. What could one ship possibly do? "Your arrogance is amusing," he said, "but misplaced. One ship cannot stop us. One ship cannot even slow us down. You will die here today, human. You and everyone aboard your vessel. Then we will proceed to the colony and finish what we started. I am not here to stop you, the human said. Zethros tilted his head in confusion. Then why are you here? The human woman smiled. It was a thin expression, cold and humorless. Zethros had seen many human faces in his time, had studied their species as one might study any prey animal. But he had never seen a smile quite like this one. I am here to deliver a message, she said. Before Zethros could respond, the transmission ended. The display went dark, then returned to the image of the human vessel floating alone at the edge of the system. What message? Thress asked nervously. What did she mean? Zethros stared at the display for a long moment. The human ship had not moved. It simply hung there in the darkness, a tiny speck against a vast backdrop of stars. Nothing, he said finally. She meant nothing. It is a bluff. A desperate attempt to make us hesitate. But even as he spoke the words, he could not shake the memory of that smile. There had been no fear in it. No hope. No desperation at all. There had been something else. Something that looked almost like satisfaction. Maintain course to the colony, Zethros ordered. But keep sensors focused on that ship. I want to know the moment it moves. Should we destroy it? His weapons officer asked. Zethros considered. A single shot from the Eternal Sovereign would vaporize the human vessel. It would be quick and easy. A simple solution. But no. He wanted the humans to watch. He wanted them to see their colony burn. He wanted them to understand just how powerless they truly were. Not yet, he said. Let them observe. Let them bear witness. When the colony is ash, then we will deal with them. The bridge returned to its normal routine. Officers monitored their stations. Reports came in from the fleet. Everything proceeded according to plan. But Zethros could not stop watching the display. The human ship remained motionless, a dark shape against the stars. It made no attempt to flee. It made no attempt to attack. It simply waited. What are you doing? He wondered. What possible purpose could you serve? He had no answers. And for the first time in longer than he could remember, High Commander Zethros of the Dominion of Kethril felt something that might have been doubt. He crushed it immediately. There was no room for doubt. There was no reason for it. One ship could not change anything. One ship meant nothing. He repeated that thought to himself as the hours passed and the fleet drew closer to the colony. One ship meant nothing. The humans were fools. Their captain was delusional. Their message, whatever it might be, would die with them. The stars remained cold and distant, uncaring witnesses to what was about to unfold. And the lone Earth vessel waited in silence. The UES Prometheus was not a beautiful ship. Captain Elena Vasquez had known this from the first moment she had set foot aboard her, 3 years ago when she had been given command. The ship was ugly. There was no other word for it. Where other species built vessels that curved and flowed like works of art, human ships were boxes. They were blocks of metal welded together with no thought for appearance. But Elena loved this ship. She loved every scarred plate of its hull, every humming corridor, every cramped compartment. Because the Prometheus was not built to be beautiful. It was built to survive. She stood on the bridge now, watching the main display that showed the distant formation of Kethril warships. 400 of them. The tactical computer had already calculated the odds of a conventional engagement. The number had so many zeros that it was essentially meaningless. 0% chance of victory. 100% chance of destruction. The computer did not know everything. Captain, Lieutenant Chen spoke up from his station at communications. The Kethril transmission has ended. They cut the channel from their end. I noticed. Elena replied. Her voice was calm, steady. It was the same voice she had used to address High Commander Zethros. The same voice she always used, regardless of what was happening around her. The bridge of the Prometheus was small compared to Cathral standards. There were 12 stations arranged in a semicircle around the central command chair, each one occupied by an officer focused entirely on their duties. No one spoke unless necessary. No one panicked. No one questioned why they were here. They all knew why they were here. Commander Torres, Elena said, turning to her first officer status report. Commander Miguel Torres was a large man with dark skin and gray hair. He had served in the Earth Fleet for over 40 years, had fought in 3 major engagements against alien species, and had the scars to prove it. He was the oldest person aboard the Prometheus, and Elena trusted him completely. All systems are operating within normal parameters, he reported. The crew is at battle stations. Engineering reports that the core is stable and ready for activation on your command. The core. Elena let the words hang in the air for a moment. How is Dr. Okonkwo? Nervous, Torres admitted. But ready. She says everything is prepared. Elena nodded. Dr. Amara Okonkwo was the chief engineer aboard the Prometheus and the person most responsible for what sat in the center of the ship. The core. The heart of everything they had come here to do. The colony, Elena said. What is their status? Meridian 7 is still being jammed, Lieutenant Chen reported. They cannot send or receive any long-range communications. But our passive sensors indicate civilian activity on the surface. They know something is coming, but they do not know what. 200,000 people. Men, women, children. Families who had left Earth to build a new life on a distant world. They had come here full of hope, full of dreams for the future. And now a fleet of alien warships was coming to burn them to ash. Elena had read their files. She had studied the colony's history, its population, its culture. She knew the names of the settlement's founders, the story of how they had struggled to build something from nothing on an empty world. She knew that there was a school on Meridian 7 with over 3,000 students. She knew that there was a hospital that had just celebrated the birth of its 10,000th baby. She knew everything about the people she had come to save. They are holding position. Lieutenant Park reported from the sensor station. The Cathral fleet is not pursuing us. They are continuing toward the colony. As expected, Elena said. They see no threat. Why would they change their plans for one ship? She moved to the central command chair and sat down. The chair was uncomfortable, designed for function rather than comfort. Everything on this ship was designed that way. Humans had learned long ago that comfort was a luxury they could not afford. All hands. She spoke into the ship-wide communication system. This is the captain. We have made contact with the enemy fleet. They have 400 ships. We have one. They have laughed at us. They have dismissed us. They do not believe we can stop them. She paused, letting her words sink in. They are wrong. Around the ship, 2,400 men and women listened. They were in engineering, monitoring systems that powered technologies most species did not believe were possible. They were in medical, preparing for casualties they hoped would never come. They were at weapons stations, ready to fight if fighting became necessary. Every single one of them had volunteered for this mission. Every single one of them knew what it meant. In a few hours, Elena continued, the Cathral fleet will reach Meridian 7. They intend to kill 200,000 innocent people. They intend to send a message to humanity that we are weak, that we can be bullied, that we will accept our place as victims in a galaxy that sees us as nothing more than prey. Her voice hardened. We are not prey. We have never been prey. For 200 years, this galaxy has tried to destroy us. We have been invaded. We have been enslaved. We have been bombed and burned and beaten. And every single time, we have survived. We have rebuilt. We have come back stronger. She looked at the display, at the distant fleet of alien warships. The Kethro do not understand what they are facing. They see our size and think us small. They see our age and think us young. They see one ship and think us weak. But they do not know what we carry. They do not know what we are willing to do. They do not know that humanity does not send one ship because we cannot send more. We send one ship because one ship is all we need. Elena stood again, her hands clasped behind her back. Today, we deliver a message, not just to the Kethral, to every species that has ever looked at humanity and seen something to exploit, something to conquer, something to destroy. Today, they learn the truth. She took a deep breath. Prometheus protocol is active. All stations prepare for engagement. May God watch over us all. She ended the transmission and returned her attention to the bridge. Commander Torres moved to stand beside her. He spoke quietly so that only she could hear. The crew is with you, Captain. Every single one of them. I know, Elena said. That is what worries me. Worries you? She turned to look at him. Miguel Torres had known her for 10 years. He had watched her rise through the ranks, had seen her become one of the youngest captains in the Earth fleet. He had never seen fear in her eyes. He did not see it now. What we are about to do, she said, changes everything. After today, nothing will be the same. The galaxy will never look at humanity the same way again. Is that not the point? The point is to save those people on Meridian 7. The point is to protect our colony. Everything else. She trailed off, shaking her head. Everything else is consequence. Torres nodded slowly. He understood. They all understood. Humanity had been pushed into a corner. For 200 years, they had tried diplomacy. They had tried negotiation. They had tried to find peaceful ways to coexist with species that saw them as nothing more than insects. And it had never worked. The first invasion had nearly destroyed them. An alien species called the Vorthan had arrived at Earth, expecting to find a primitive world ripe for conquest. They had not expected resistance. But humans had fought back with everything they had, with weapons that were crude and outdated, with tactics born of desperation. The war had lasted 20 years and cost billions of lives. Humanity had won. Barely. The second invasion came a generation later. A different species, a different enemy, but the same contempt, the same assumption that humans were nothing. This time, humanity was more prepared. The war was shorter, the victory more decisive. But it had taught them something important. It had taught them that the galaxy would never stop seeing them as targets. There would always be another species, another empire, another threat. And humanity would always be fighting from a position of weakness. So they had started planning, secretly, carefully. They had begun developing technologies that should not exist. Weapons that broke the rules of warfare. Systems that exploited fundamental forces of the universe in ways that other species had never imagined. The Prometheus was the result of 50 years of work, 50 years of sacrifice, 50 years of brilliant minds working in secret laboratories on hidden stations, pouring everything they had into a single question. How do you stop an enemy that outnumbers you 1,000 to 1? The answer sat in the center of the ship. The Cascade engine. Elena had seen it only once, during a briefing before the mission. It did not look like much. A cylinder of exotic metal surrounding a core of something that her eyes could not quite focus on. Dr. Okonkwo had tried to explain how it worked, using words like quantum folding and spatial resonance cascade and fundamental force manipulation. Elena had not understood most of it, but she had understood enough. The Cascade engine was not a weapon in the traditional sense. It did not fire projectiles. It did not release energy beams. It did something far more terrifying. It reached into the fabric of space itself and twisted it. It created a chain reaction that propagated at faster than light speeds, affecting every object within its range in ways that violated the normal laws of physics. In simple terms, it made things fall apart. "Captain," Lieutenant Park interrupted her thoughts, "the Cathral fleet is increasing speed. They will reach the colony in approximately 4 hours. 4 hours, Elena repeated. She moved back to her chair and sat down. Begin charging the core. Inform Dr. Okonkwo that we will initiate the protocol in 3 hours and 45 minutes. Understood, Torres said. He moved to relay the orders, leaving Elena alone with her thoughts. She looked at the display again. 400 alien warships, crewed by tens of thousands of Cathral warriors. They were soldiers, she supposed. They had families, lives, hopes, and dreams just like humans did. They were following orders, doing what they believed was right. And in a few hours, she was going to kill all of them. Elena had made peace with this long ago. She had looked into herself and found the part of her that could do what needed to be done. It was not a comfortable part. It was not a kind part. But it was necessary. The Cathral had given humanity no choice. They had refused every diplomatic overture. They had rejected every peace proposal. They had made it clear that they would continue to expand, to conquer, to destroy, until there was nothing left of human civilization. So humanity had prepared a response. Captain, Lieutenant Chun spoke up, we are receiving a transmission from the colony. They managed to punch through the jamming for a few seconds. Let me hear it. The bridge speakers crackled with static, then clear enough to make out a voice. It was a woman, speaking quickly, desperately. Is Governor Martinez of Meridian 7. If anyone can hear this, please respond. We have detected a massive fleet approaching our position. We estimate 400 vessels. We have no defenses, no military ships. There are 200,000 civilians here, including 50,000 children. Please, if anyone can hear this, we need help. We need... The transmission cut off, lost in static. Elena closed her eyes for a moment. 50,000 children. We hear you, Governor, she whispered. Help is here. She opened her eyes and looked at her crew. They were watching her, waiting for her orders. She saw determination in their faces, resolve, faith. They believed in her. They believed in this mission. They believed that one ship could make a difference. All stations, she said, her voice carrying across the bridge, begin final preparations. In 3 hours and 45 minutes, we end this. The bridge erupted into controlled activity. Officers confirmed systems, ran diagnostics, prepared for what was coming. Everything moved with practiced efficiency. Commander Torres returned to her side. The crew's ready, Captain. Are you ready? She asked him quietly. He considered the question for a moment. I have been ready for 40 years. Ever since the Vorthan killed my family in the first invasion. I have been waiting for the day when humanity would stop running. When we would stand up and show the galaxy what we are capable of. And what are we capable of? Torres looked at the display, at the fleet of enemy ships moving inexorably toward the helpless colony. Anything, he said. We are capable of anything. That is what makes us human. Elena nodded. She understood. She had felt the same thing since she was a child, since she had grown up in the ruins of cities destroyed by alien weapons. She had felt it every time she looked at the stars and wondered why the universe seemed determined to destroy her species. Now, she was going to give the universe an answer. Captain, Dr. Okonkwo's voice came over the comm system. The core is charging. All readings are nominal. We will be ready on schedule. Thank you, Doctor. Keep me informed. Captain? The engineer's voice hesitated for a moment. "I just wanted to say, it has been an honor to serve on this ship. Whatever happens today, I am proud of what we have built." Elena felt a warmth spread through her chest. "The honor has been mine, Doctor. All of you. Every single person on this ship. You are the best humanity has to offer." She ended the communication and returned her attention to the display. The Kethril fleet continued its approach, unaware of what was waiting for them. High Commander Zethros was probably feeling quite pleased with himself right now. He had laughed at the lone Earth vessel. He had dismissed it as nothing more than a nuisance. He would not be laughing for much longer. Elena Vasquez sat in her command chair, surrounded by her crew, watching the stars slowly slide past. Somewhere ahead, 400 warships were moving toward innocent civilians with the intent to murder them all. They would never reach their destination. The Prometheus waited, patient and silent. Its core hummed with building power. Its crew worked with quiet determination. Its captain sat calm and still, counting down the minutes until everything changed. 3 hours and 45 minutes. Then the galaxy would learn the truth about humanity. Then the galaxy would understand. Deep in the heart of the Prometheus, past corridors that required the highest security clearance, behind doors that could withstand a nuclear blast, Dr. Amara Okonkwo stood before the most dangerous creation in human history. The Cascade engine did not look impressive. It was a cylinder roughly the size of a small car, wrapped in layers of exotic materials that human science had only recently learned to produce. At its center was something that hurt the eyes to look at directly. A sphere of controlled energy that seemed to fold in on itself, existing in multiple states at once. The engineering team called it the heart. Amara thought of it as the fist, humanity's fist, clenched and ready to strike. Core charge at 42%, reported Engineer First Class David Kim from his station. All containment fields stable. No anomalies detected. "Good," Amara said. She was a tall woman with dark skin and close-cropped gray hair. Her hands were steady despite the weight of what she was doing. "Continue monitoring. Report any fluctuation immediately." Around her, a team of 12 engineers worked in focused silence. They were the best in their fields, recruited from universities and research facilities across Earth and its colonies. They had spent years learning to understand the impossible machine that hummed before them, but most of them had never expected to see it. Activated, Amara walked slowly around the core, checking readings on various displays. Everything was proceeding exactly as the simulations had predicted. The Cascade engine was coming to life, drawing power from the ship's massive reactor array and converting it into something that defied conventional physics. She remembered the first time she had seen the theoretical framework for this technology. It had been 20 years ago, when she was a young researcher working on quantum field theory. Her mentor, Dr. James Whitfield, had called her into his office late one night and shown her a series of equations that made no sense. "This is impossible," she had said. "Impossible means nothing," Whitfield had replied. "It just means we have not figured it out yet." He had been right. It had taken another decade of work, countless failures, the deaths of 7 researchers in laboratory accidents, and more money than Amara could calculate. But they had figured it out. The Cascade engine could manipulate the fundamental forces that held matter together. It could reach across vast distances and affect multiple objects simultaneously. It could do things that the laws of physics said should not be possible. And today, for the first time, it would be used as a weapon. "Dr. Okonkwo," Kim spoke up again. "I am seeing some unusual readings from the secondary containment field. Nothing dangerous, but..." Amara moved to his station and studied the display. The readings showed a slight variation in the field's resonance pattern. It was within acceptable parameters, but it was unusual. The core is aware, she said quietly. Kim looked at her with confusion. Aware? Doctor, the core is not a living thing. No, Amara agreed. Not living, but it responds to intention. We designed it that way. It knows what we are about to do. This was one of the stranger aspects of the Cascade engine, something that the engineering team had never fully explained. The quantum interactions at its heart created a kind of feedback loop with the human minds operating it. Not telepathy, not consciousness, but something in between. The core could sense purpose. It could respond to determination. Right now, it was responding to the collective will of the entire ship. Core charge at 51%, Kim reported. Acceleration is increasing slightly. We may be ready ahead of schedule. Amara nodded. The crew is focused. The core is feeding on that focus. She stepped back and looked at the machine she had helped create. 20 years of her life had gone into this moment. 20 years of sacrifice, of secrets, of wondering if what she was building would ever be needed. Now it was needed. And she was ready. The communications panel beeped, and Captain Vasquez's voice filled the engineering bay. Dr. Okonkwo, status report. Core charge is at 53% and climbing, Captain. All systems are functioning within normal parameters. We will be ready on schedule, possibly ahead of it. Understood. Is there anything you need? Amara considered the question. No, Captain. We have everything we need. We have been preparing for this moment for a very long time. We all have, Doctor. We all have. The communication ended, and Amara returned to her monitoring dot. She thought about the history that had led to this moment. The history of humanity in a hostile galaxy. The struggles, the losses, the near-extinction events that had shaped her species into what it was today. The first contact had come 300 years ago, when a Vorthan survey ship had stumbled upon Earth. The aliens had expected to find a primitive world, a resource to be exploited. Instead, they had found a planet of 7 billion intelligent beings who had no intention of being conquered. The Vorthan had not expected resistance. Their previous encounters with intelligent species had always followed the same pattern. Arrive, demonstrate superiority, accept surrender. Simple and efficient. Humans had refused to follow the pattern. The war that followed had lasted 2 decades. The Vorthan had superior technology, superior numbers, superior everything. But humans had something the Vorthan did not understand. They had the absolute refusal to accept defeat. Cities burned. Billions died. The human military was shattered again and again. But every time the Vorthan thought they had won, humans came back. They learned. They adapted. They found ways to fight that the Vorthan had never seen before. In the end, humanity had won not through superior strength, but through superior determination. They had made the war too costly. The Vorthan had retreated, deciding that conquering Earth was not worth the price. But humanity had learned something important from that war. The galaxy was not a friendly place. There were thousands of species out there, and most of them saw younger civilizations as nothing more than resources to be used. If humanity wanted to survive, it needed to change. The second invasion had come 50 years later. A different species, the Crystalline Collective, had heard about the strange primitive world that had defeated the Vorthan. They had come to investigate, and they had decided that humans would make excellent slaves. They had been wrong. This time, humanity was more prepared. The war was shorter, the human response more effective. But it had cost tens of millions of lives, and it had reinforced the lesson of the first invasion. The galaxy would never stop coming for them. There would always be another threat. So humanity had started the Prometheus project. It had begun as a theoretical exercise. A group of scientists asking a simple question: what would it take to ensure that humanity could never be threatened again? The answer had led them down paths that conventional science said were impossible. They had studied the fundamental forces of the universe. They had learned to manipulate space itself. They had developed technologies that other species had never imagined because they had never needed to. The ancient empires of the galaxy had grown complacent over millions of years. They had stopped innovating. They had stopped pushing the boundaries of what was possible. Humanity had no such luxury. They were young, weak, and surrounded by enemies. They had to innovate. They had to find advantages wherever they could. The Cascade engine was the result. Amara remembered the day they had completed the first working prototype. It had been tested in deep space, far from any inhabited system. The target had been a small asteroid, roughly the size of a building. When they activated the engine, the asteroid had simply ceased to exist. Not exploded, not vaporized. Ceased to exist. The fundamental forces holding its atoms together had been disrupted at the quantum level. Matter itself had come apart at the seams. The research team had stared at the results in silence. They had created something that could destroy anything. And then had come the hard question, the moral question. Did they have the right to use such a weapon? Amara had struggled with that question for years. She still struggled with it now as she watched the core charge toward activation. What they were about to do would kill tens of thousands of Cathral warriors. It would erase 400 warships from existence. It would be the single most destructive act in human history. But she had made her peace with it. She had thought about the alternative. The Cathral were on their way to kill 200,000 innocent people. Men, women, children, families who had done nothing wrong except exist in space that the Dominion considered theirs. If the Prometheus did not act, those people would die. And after Meridian 7, there would be other colonies, other targets. The Cathral had made their intentions clear. They would continue to expand, to conquer, to kill until humanity was either subjugated or destroyed. So humanity had to make a choice. Accept slow extinction or use the weapon they had created. They had chosen to fight. Core charge at 70%, Kim reported. All systems still nominal. Amara nodded. The engine was hungry now, pulling power faster and faster. She could feel it somehow, a pressure at the back of her mind. The core was reaching out, connecting with every person on the ship, drawing on their collective will. This was what the other species did not understand about humans. It was not their technology that made them dangerous. It was not their weapons or their ships or their numbers. It was their ability to come together, to focus on a single goal, to pour everything they had into achieving the impossible. The Cathral had conquered 17 species over 50,000 years. They had never faced a species that would not break. They had never faced a species that looked at impossible odds and said, "We will find a way." They were about to learn. The intercom crackled again. This time, it was Commander Torres's voice. "All hands, this is the executive officer. The captain has authorized me to share some information about what we are about to do. Many of you already know pieces of this story. Now you will know all of it." Amara paused in her work to listen. Around her, the engineering team did the same. 50 years ago, after the second invasion, the United Earth Council made a decision. We could not continue to fight defensive wars against enemies who outnumbered us 1,000 to 1. We needed a new strategy. We needed something that would make the galaxy think twice before attacking humanity again. Torres paused. The Prometheus project was born. For 50 years, the brightest minds in human history worked in secret to create a weapon that could end any threat, no matter how large. They succeeded. What sits in the heart of this ship is the result of their work. It is called the Cascade engine. Another pause. In a few hours, We will use this engine against the Kethral fleet. 400 warships will be destroyed in a matter of seconds. Tens of thousands of enemy soldiers will die. This will be the single most destructive moment in human history. Amara watched the faces of her engineering team. Some looked grim. Some looked determined. None looked surprised. They had known what they were carrying. They had known what they might be called upon to do. I will not pretend that this is easy, Torres continued. What we are about to do will haunt all of us for the rest of our lives. But I want you to remember something. Those warships are on their way to murder 200,000 innocent people, women, men, children. They are going to burn a human colony to ash as a message to the rest of our species. His voice hardened. We are going to send a different message. We are going to show the galaxy that humanity is not prey. We are not victims. We are not going to quietly accept our extinction. We will fight. And when we fight, we will win. The intercom fell silent. Amara looked at Kim. Core charge? 82%, he replied. We will be ready in less than an hour. Less than an hour. In less than an hour, everything would change. The galaxy would learn the truth about humanity. The truth that had been hidden for 50 years. Amara returned to her monitoring. The core pulsed with building energy, responding to the determination that filled the ship. It was ready. They were all ready. She thought about her mentor, Dr. Whitfile, who had died 10 years ago without ever seeing his work completed. She thought about the 7 researchers who had given their lives in laboratory accidents. She thought about the countless scientists and engineers who had contributed to this project over 5 decades. They had built this weapon hoping it would never be used. They had created it as insurance against a galaxy that wanted humanity dead. Now that insurance was about to be called in. I am sorry, Amara whispered to no one in particular. To the Kethral who were about to die. To the universe that had forced humanity into this position. To herself for being the one who had to push the button. I am sorry, but we have no choice. The core continued to charge. The ship continued to wait. And somewhere ahead, 400 warships continued their approach toward a colony they would never reach. In the cold darkness of space, humanity was about to speak. And the galaxy would listen. The moment arrived without ceremony. Captain Elena Vasquez sat in her command chair, watching the countdown display tick towards 0. Around her, the bridge crew worked in absolute silence. There was nothing left to say. Every preparation had been made. Every system had been checked and rechecked. Every person aboard the Prometheus knew exactly what was about to happen. Core charge at 100%, Lieutenant Park reported. All systems are ready for activation. Elena took a deep breath. She had imagined this moment 1,000 times. She had played it out in her mind during sleepless nights, during long watches on quiet bridges, during every moment of preparation that had led to this point. Now it was here, and it felt strangely ordinary. Open a channel to the Kethral flagship, she ordered. Commander Torres looked at her with surprise. Captain? They should know, Elena said. They should understand what is about to happen. They deserve that much. Torres hesitated for just a moment, then nodded to Lieutenant Chun. The communications officer worked his console, and a few seconds later, the main display showed the bridge of the Eternal Sovereign. Hi. Commander Zethros looked exactly as he had during their first conversation. His 4 eyes glowed with arrogance. His massive form radiated power and confidence. He looked at Elena with something that might have been amusement. You return, human, he said. Have you come to surrender? To beg for your lives? No, Elena replied. I have come to offer you a choice. Zethros made a sound that was clearly laughter. Around him, his officers joined in. The chittering filled the speakers, a noise of contempt and mockery. A choice? The High Commander's voice was thick with disbelief. What choice could a single human vessel possibly offer the Dominion? Turn back, Elena said. Leave this system. Leave Meridian 7 in peace. Return to your space and never threaten humanity again. The laughter stopped. Zethros stared at her with something that might have been confusion. You are insane, he said slowly. You stand alone against 400 warships, and you demand our surrender? I am not demanding surrender. I am offering survival. For a long moment, there was silence. Zethros studied her face, searching for something. Deception, fear, madness. He found none of these things. What he found was something he had never seen in a human before. Certainty. What are you? He asked quietly. I am Captain Elena Vasquez of the United Earthship Prometheus. I am the commander of this vessel and its crew. I am a person who is giving you one final chance to live. Zethros straightened to his full height. His mandibles clicked together in what Elena recognized as a sigh of anger. The Dominion does not accept threats from insects, he snarled. We do not bow to primitives. We do not run from a single ship. Whatever weapon you think you have, it cannot stop us. Nothing can stop us. Then I'm sorry, Elena said. I truly am. She ended the transmission. The bridge of the Prometheus was silent. Every officer watched their captain, waiting for the order they knew was coming. Elena looked at the tactical display. 400 Kethrol warships arranged in their perfect formation. Tens of thousands of enemy warriors, confident in their power, certain of their victory. They had laughed at her. They had dismissed her. They had refused to listen. Now they would learn. Commander Torres, she said, her voice steady and calm, initiate Prometheus protocol. Authorization code Vasquez Alpha 773. Torres moved to his station. His hands were steady as he entered the command sequence. Authorization confirmed, he reported. Protocol is initiating. Core activation in 10 seconds. On the main display, the countdown began. 10. Deep in the heart of the ship. The Cascade engine began its final sequence. Containment fields shifted. Power surged through conduits that had been designed for this single moment. 9. Dr. Okonkwo watched her displays with focused intensity. The core was responding, its quantum heart unfolding in ways that defied conventional physics. 8. In the corridors of the ship, crew members stopped what they were doing. Some prayed. Some simply waited. All of them felt something building. A pressure that seemed to come from everywhere at once. 7. The Kethrol sensors detected the energy spike. Warning systems activated across their fleet. Officers scrambled to understand readings that made no sense. 6. On the Eternal Sovereign, High Commander Zethros felt the first flicker of genuine fear. His sensor officer was screaming something about impossible power levels. About energies that should not exist. 5. The Cascade engine reached critical resonance. The quantum core at its heart began to fold in on itself, drawing power from dimensions that human science had only recently learned to access. 4. The Prometheus began to glow. A soft light emanated from its hull, spreading outward like ripples on water. 3. Every Kethrol ship tried to raise shields, tried to charge weapons, tried to do something, anything, to respond to the threat they were only now beginning to understand. 2. Captain Vasquez spoke quietly, so that only those closest to her could hear. Forgive us. 1. The Cascade engine fired. It was not like any weapon the galaxy had ever seen. There was no beam of light, no projectile, no explosion of energy crossing the void between ships. Instead, space itself seemed to shiver. A wave of something invisible and unstoppable expanded outward from the Prometheus at speeds that made light seem slow. The wave reached the nearest Kethrol vessel in 0.3 seconds. It was a destroyer crewed by 300 warriors who had served the Dominion their entire lives. They had time to see their sensors go dark. They had time to feel something wrong. Then their ship simply came apart. Not exploded. Not damaged. Came apart. The fundamental forces holding their vessel together, the bonds between atoms, the structure of matter itself, were disrupted at the quantum level. The ship dissolved into a cloud of debris that expanded in all directions. The wave continued. Ship after ship met the same fate. Battlecruisers that had conquered entire star systems fell apart like sandcastles in a storm. Carrier vessels that had launched 1,000 invasions shattered into clouds of crystalline dust. The ancient, beautiful warships of the Kethral Dominion, grown over centuries, refined over millennia, were unmade in the blink of an eye. High Commander Zethros watched his fleet die. His sensor displays had gone dark almost immediately, overloaded by readings that no system could process. But through the viewport of the Eternal Sovereign, he could see what was happening. He could see the stars disappearing one by one as his ships expanded into clouds of debris. It was impossible. It was wrong. It violated everything he understood about the universe. And it was happening. All ships, emergency retreat, he ordered, his voice cracking for the first time in 3 centuries. All ships, fall back. Fall back. No one responded. The communication systems were dead. The ships that might have received his orders were already gone. The wave reached the center of the formation. The Eternal Sovereign was the largest ship in the fleet, the most heavily armored, the most powerful. It had systems that smaller vessels did not have. Shields that could withstand planetary bombardment. Hull plating that had never been breached. None of it mattered. Zethros felt his ship shudder. He saw cracks appear in the crystalline walls of his bridge. He heard his officers screaming as their stations exploded around them. He had 1.7 seconds. Just long enough to reach his communication console. Just long enough to send a final, desperate message to his homeworld. They were never prey. Then the Eternal Sovereign came apart, and High Commander Zethros of the Dominion of Kethral ceased to exist. The wave continued for another 0.8 seconds before it faded. Its energy spent, its purpose fulfilled. Behind it was nothing but expanding clouds of crystalline debris, glittering in the starlight like 1 billion tiny diamonds. 400 warships. Tens of thousands of warriors. Gone in 4.2 seconds. The battle, if it could be called that, was over. On the surface of Meridian 7, the colonists had been watching the sky. They knew something terrible was coming. They had seen the distant specks of the approaching fleet. They had said goodbye to each other, held their children, prepared to die. Then the sky had lit up. It was like watching 100 supernovas at once. Brilliant points of light bloomed across the darkness, each one marking the death of a warship. The light show lasted only seconds, but it seemed to stretch into eternity. Governor Maria Martinez stood at the window of the colony's administrative building, her mouth hanging open. Around her, her staff watched in stunned silence. "What?" she began, then stopped. There were no words for what they had just witnessed. "The fleet," her communications officer said. "The entire Kethral fleet. It's gone." Martinez turned to look at her displays. The sensor data was confused, fragmentary, but clear enough. Where 400 warships had been moments ago, there was now nothing but debris. "How?" she asked. "How is that possible?" No one could answer. On the Prometheus, the bridge crew sat in shocked silence. They had known what to expect. They had been briefed on the capabilities of the Cascade engine. But seeing it happen, actually watching 400 ships dissolve into nothing, was something different entirely. Captain Vasquez stared at the tactical display. Where the Kethral fleet had been, there was now a spreading field of debris, tiny fragments of crystal and metal already being pulled by the gravity of the distant star. In a few hours, there would be nothing left at all. "Report," she said, her voice steady despite everything. Lieutenant Park was the first to respond. "The Kethral fleet has been destroyed, Captain. All 400 vessels. No survivors detected. No survivors. Tens of thousands of lives ended in less than 5 seconds." Elena closed her eyes for a moment. She had known this would happen. She had prepared for it. But knowing and experiencing were different things. "Any damage to the Prometheus?" Commander Torres checked his displays. "None, Captain. The Cascade engine performed exactly as designed. The wave expanded outward from our position, leaving us unaffected. And the colony? Meridian 7 is intact. The wave dissipated before reaching the planet. They are safe. Safe. 200,000 people were safe. 50,000 children would grow up, would have futures, would never know how close they had come to dying today." Elena opened her eyes. That was what mattered. That was why they had done this. "Open a channel to the colony," she ordered. A moment later, Governor Martinez's face appeared on the display. The woman looked like she had seen a ghost. Her eyes were wide, her face pale. She stared at Elena as if not quite believing what she was seeing. "Governor Martinez," Elena said. "This is Captain Vasquez of the United Earthship Prometheus. The threat to your colony has been eliminated. You are safe." Martinez tried to speak, failed, tried again. "How?" "What did you?" "The entire fleet." "I understand your confusion," Elena said. "A full explanation will be provided in time. For now, I need you to focus on your people. Some of them may be injured or traumatized. They will need your leadership, of course." Martinez seemed to pull herself together through sheer force of will. "Of course. Captain, I don't know how to thank you. We thought we were going to die. You are not going to die. Not today. Not ever, if humanity has anything to say about it." The communication ended, and Elena turned to her crew. "Well done," she said. "All of you. What we did today. It was not easy. It will never be easy. But we saved 200,000 innocent lives. That is something to be proud of." Commander Torres moved to stand beside her. "What happens now, Captain?" Elena looked at the tactical display. The debris field was already spreading thin, dispersing into the void. Soon there would be no trace that 400 warships had ever existed. "Now," she said, "the galaxy learns the truth. The Kethral will have received High Commander Zethro's as final transmission. They will know what happened here. And they will tell others. They will want revenge. Perhaps, or perhaps they will learn wisdom. Either way, humanity will be ready." She stood up from her command chair and looked around the bridge. Her crew was watching her, waiting for her words. "For 200 years," she said, "humanity has been the galaxy's victim. We have been invaded, enslaved, nearly destroyed. We have suffered losses that would have broken any other species. But we did not break. We survived. We learned. We grew stronger." She paused, letting her words sink in. "Today, we sent a message. Not just to the Kethral, but to every species in the galaxy. Humanity is no longer prey. Humanity is no longer a target to be exploited. From this day forward, anyone who threatens our species will face the consequences." The bridge was silent. "We did not want this war," Elena continued. "We did not want to build weapons of mass destruction. We did not want to kill tens of thousands of soldiers who were just following orders. But we were given no choice. The galaxy decided that humanity should be victims, and we refused." She looked toward the viewport, toward the distant stars. Now the galaxy will have to decide what happens next. They can accept us as equals, respect our right to exist, and live in peace. Or they can continue to threaten us and learn what humans are truly capable of. Commander Torres spoke quietly. What do you think they will choose, Captain? Elena considered the question. She thought about the Kethral, about their arrogance, their contempt. She thought about all the other species that had looked at humanity and seen nothing but prey. I think, she said slowly, that some of them will choose peace. They will see what happened today and understand that humanity is not worth fighting. They will accept a new reality where humans are no longer victims. And the others? Elena's face hardened. The others will learn the same lesson the Kethral learned today. Some lessons can only be taught through experience. She returned to her command chair. Set course for Earth, she ordered. Standard cruising speed. The Council will want a full report, and the crew deserves to see their families. Aye, Captain, Lieutenant Kim responded from the helm. The Prometheus turned slowly, leaving the debris field behind. As it accelerated toward the jump point, Captain Vasquez allowed herself a moment of quiet reflection. It was done. The secret was out. Humanity had revealed its hidden strength to the galaxy. Now they would all have to live with the consequences. The news traveled faster than light. Within hours of the battle at Meridian 7, sensor data had been transmitted across the galaxy. Every major power, every minor faction, every species with access to interstellar communication networks watched in stunned silence as the recordings played. 400 warships. The pride of the Kethral Dominion. Gone in 4.2 seconds. On the Kethral homeworld, the ruling council gathered in their ancient chambers to review the evidence. They watched the sensor data again and again, trying to find some explanation, some flaw in the recording that would make what they were seeing less impossible. There was no flaw. The data was accurate. A single human vessel had destroyed their entire expeditionary fleet in less time than it took to draw a breath. Elder Krathvos, the oldest member of the council, spoke first. His voice was heavy with an emotion that few Kethral had experienced in thousands of years. Fear. We must respond, he said. We cannot allow this insult to go unanswered. Respond how? Councilor Threnda demanded. Send another fleet? 2 fleets? 1,000 ships? What difference would it make? The council chamber fell silent. They all knew the answer. If one human ship could destroy 400 vessels, then sending more ships would accomplish nothing except creating more debris. We do not know the limits of their weapon, Elder Mothra said carefully. Perhaps it can only be used once. Perhaps it drained their vessel's power. Perhaps if we strike quickly enough. Perhaps, Councilor Threnda interrupted, we could contact the humans and ask them. Because gambling on perhaps when facing a weapon that can destroy our entire military seems unwise. The argument continued for hours. Some council members wanted war. Some wanted negotiation. Some wanted to pretend that nothing had happened and hoped the humans would leave them alone. In the end, they chose caution. Not peace, not yet. But a pause. A pulling back of forces. A message sent through diplomatic channels asking for talks. It was the first time in 50,000 years that the Kethral Dominion had asked anyone for anything. Across the galaxy, similar scenes played out. Species that had never paid attention to humanity suddenly found themselves very interested in the small blue world called Earth. Ambassadors were dispatched. Intelligence agents were activated. Military strategists began revising their assessments of human capabilities. And on 17 worlds, something unexpected happened. The species that the Kethral had conquered over the millennia had watched the recording too. They had seen the fleet that had oppressed them, that had killed their ancestors. that had stolen their futures. They had seen that fleet erased in seconds by a single human ship on the planet Theraxis. The enslaved population of insectoid beings, called the Vethkai, began to organize. Their Cathral overseers were nervous, distracted, waiting for orders that never came. For the first time in 3,000 years, the Vethkai dared to hope. On the frozen world of Noth Prime, the aquatic Notherians whispered among themselves in their underwater cities. The Dominion was weak. The Dominion had been humiliated. Perhaps it was time to remember what freedom felt like. On world after world, the same thoughts emerged. The same calculations were made. The same conclusions reached. The Cathral had ruled through fear. Now that fear had a new target. 3 weeks after the battle, the first rebellion began. The Vethkai rose up against their Cathral masters, using improvised weapons and sheer numbers to overwhelm the distracted garrison. Within days, they had freed their homeworld. More rebellions followed. The Dominion, stretched thin and uncertain, could not respond effectively. Their military was in chaos, their leadership divided, their confidence shattered. For 50,000 years, they had believed themselves invincible. Now they knew the truth. No one was invincible. On Earth, the United Earth Council met in emergency session. The chamber was packed with representatives from every human colony, every major government, every significant faction. They had all come to hear Captain Vasquez's report. She stood before them in her dress uniform, looking smaller than usual, surrounded by the grand architecture of the council chamber. But her voice carried clearly, and her words were precise. The Prometheus protocol was successful, she said. 400 Cathral warships were destroyed with no human casualties. The colony at Meridian 7 was saved. The Cascade engine performed exactly as designed. Secretary General Marcus Chun leaned forward. He was an older man with silver hair and tired eyes. He had held his position for 12 years, navigating humanity through countless crises. But nothing had prepared him for this. And what of the aftermath, Captain? What is happening in the galaxy now? Elena had been briefed extensively on this question. The Dominion has withdrawn all forces from contested territories. They have requested diplomatic discussions. As of this morning, 7 of their subject species have declared independence. More are expected to follow. A murmur ran through the chamber. 7 species. Billions of beings, freed from millennia of oppression. Because of what one human ship had done. You have painted a target on our species, Chun said quietly. Every empire in the galaxy will see us as a threat now. Yes, Elena agreed. They will. And you believe this is a good thing? Elena considered her words carefully. For 200 years, the galaxy saw humanity as victims, as prey, as something to be used and discarded. They attacked us repeatedly because they believed we were weak. They killed billions of our people because they thought they could. She paused, letting her words sink in. Now they know they were wrong. Now they understand that threatening humanity has consequences. Yes, some of them will see us as a threat, but they will also see us as something to be respected, something to be negotiated with rather than conquered, something that cannot be ignored. Chun sat back in his chair. There will be those who want revenge. The Cathral have ruled for 50,000 years. They will not accept this humiliation quietly. Perhaps, Elena said, but they will also remember what happened to their fleet. They will remember that 400 ships were not enough. They will calculate the odds and realize that victory against humanity is not guaranteed. And if they calculate that the odds favor them, Elena met the Secretary General's eyes without flinching. Then they will learn the same lesson that High Commander Zethros learned. We have more than one ship. We have more than one weapon. The Prometheus protocol was designed to send a message. If that message needs to be repeated, it will be. The chamber was silent. Let me be clear, Elena continued. Humanity does not want war. We did not build these weapons because we enjoy destruction. We built them because the galaxy gave us no choice. Every species we have encountered has either tried to conquer us, enslave us, or exterminate us. We developed the Cascade engine as a last resort, a final option when all other options had failed. She looked around the chamber, meeting the eyes of representatives from across human civilization. Today, we have a chance to change the narrative. We have demonstrated that humanity cannot be pushed around. Now we can offer peace from a position of strength rather than weakness. We can negotiate with species that would never have spoken to us as equals before. We can build alliances, establish treaties, create a future where humanity is not constantly fighting for survival. Secretary General Chan nodded slowly. And what do you recommend, Captain? Reach out, Elena said. To everyone. The Kethral, the other major powers, the species that have just won their freedom. Tell them that humanity wants peace, but we are prepared for war. Tell them that we have the power to defend ourselves, and we are willing to use it. And tell them that we would rather be friends than enemies. The vote came 3 hours later. By an overwhelming majority, the Council approved Elena's recommendations. Diplomatic missions were dispatched to dozens of species. Peace overtures were extended to the Kethral. Support was offered to the newly freed peoples of the former Dominion. It was not a perfect solution. There were still threats out there. There were still species that would see humanity as something to be destroyed rather than befriended. But for the first time in 200 years, humanity faced the future from a position of strength. 6 months later, Elena stood on the observation deck of Earth Station 1, looking down at the blue planet below. She had been promoted to Admiral, given command of the newly formed Strategic Defense Fleet. It was an honor she had not wanted, but one she had accepted because it was necessary. Commander Torres found her there, staring at the stars with an expression he could not quite read. The Kethral ambassador has arrived, he reported. They are ready to begin formal negotiations. Elena nodded but did not turn around. I will be there shortly. Torres hesitated. Something wrong, Admiral? No, not wrong. She turned to face him. I was just thinking about what we did. What we started. We saved 200,000 people. We did. And we killed tens of thousands of others. We broke an empire that had stood for 50,000 years. We changed the balance of power in the entire galaxy. She shook her head. History will judge whether we did the right thing. Torres moved to stand beside her. They had served together for over a decade now. He knew her better than almost anyone. You think we did the wrong thing? Elena was silent for a long moment. I think we did the only thing we could do. The Kethral would have killed everyone on Meridian 7. They would have continued to expand, to conquer, to destroy. We stopped them the only way we could. But I wonder sometimes about the Kethral soldiers who died. They were following orders. They had families, lives, hopes. They did not choose to be born into a species that saw others as inferior. They did not choose to serve an empire built on conquest. Torres nodded slowly. They were our enemies. They would have killed us without hesitation. I know, and I would make the same choice again if I had to. But that does not mean I have to feel good about it. She looked at him with eyes that carried a weight he had not seen before. The day we start celebrating the deaths of our enemies is the day we become what they were. They stood in silence for a while, watching Earth rotate slowly below them. The freed species are doing well, Torres said eventually. The Vethkai have established a provisional government. The Natharians are rebuilding their culture. Others are following their example. That is good news. They want to form an alliance with humanity. They say we showed them that freedom is possible. They want to help build a galaxy where no one is enslaved. Elena smiled slightly. It was the first smile Torres had seen from her in weeks. Perhaps that is our legacy, she said. Not the destruction we caused, but the freedom we enabled. Perhaps history will remember us not as conquerors or destroyers, but as liberators. Perhaps. She straightened up and adjusted her uniform. Very well. Let us go meet the Kethral ambassador. Let us see if peace is possible. They walked together toward the diplomatic section of the station. Through the windows, they could see the stars spreading out in all directions. The galaxy that had once seemed determined to destroy humanity now looked at them with new eyes. Respect, fear, wonder, and perhaps, just perhaps, hope. In the meeting room, the Kethral ambassador waited. He was smaller than Zethros had been, younger, with scales that were a lighter shade of blue. His name was Threnvos, and he had been chosen specifically because he had argued against the attack on Meridian 7. He rose as Elena entered, performing a traditional Kethral bow of greeting between equals. Admiral Vasquez, he said, I am honored to meet you. Your name is known throughout the Dominion. I imagine it is, Elena replied. I hope we can give it better associations than it currently has. Threnvos made a sound that might have been a laugh. That is my hope as well. The Council has authorized me to discuss terms for a lasting peace. They understand that the old ways cannot continue. Elena sat down across from him. The old ways nearly destroyed both our peoples. I think it is time for new ways. Agreed. The ambassador leaned forward. I must ask you a question, Admiral. Not for the Council, but for myself. Ask. The weapon you used. The Cascade engine. Would you have used it if the fleet had turned back? If Zethros had accepted your offer? Elena considered the question. She had asked herself the same thing many times. No, she said finally. We did not come to the Vexery Expanse to destroy your fleet. We came to save our colony. If Zethros had turned back, we would have let him go. Threnvos nodded slowly. That is what I hoped you would say. It tells me that peace is possible. Peace is always possible, Elena said. It just requires both sides to want it. And does humanity want it? After everything that has been done to your species? Elena thought about the invasions, the lives lost, the cities destroyed, the centuries of fear and struggle that had shaped her people into what they were today. Humanity wants peace, she said. We have always wanted peace. But we learned long ago that wanting is not enough. The galaxy did not respect our wishes. It did not honor our offers of friendship. It saw our outstretched hands and reached for weapons instead. She met the ambassador's eyes. So we learned to be strong. We learned to fight. We learned to build weapons that could end wars rather than just survive them. But strength is not the same as aggression. We do not want to conquer. We do not want to rule. We want to exist freely and safely in a galaxy that has spent 200 years trying to destroy us. Threnvos was silent for a moment. You are different than we expected. Than any of us expected. We are survivors, Elena said. We are what the galaxy made us. And now we are offering something the galaxy has never offered us. A chance to start over. A chance to build something better. A chance for peace. The ambassador extended his clawed hand across the table. It was an ancient gesture, one that predated the Dominion itself. An offer of trust. Elena took it. Then let us begin, Threnvos said. Let us see what humanity and the Dominion can build together. Outside the window, the stars continued their eternal dance. Somewhere out there, 17 species were tasting freedom for the first time in millennia. Somewhere out there, empires were reconsidering their policies toward a small blue world called Earth. Somewhere out there, a galaxy was changing. And at the center of it all, humanity was finally taking its place among the stars. Not as prey, not as victims, but as equals. The journey was far from over. There would be more challenges ahead, more enemies to face, more impossible situations to navigate. But humanity had proven something important at Meridian 7. They had proven that they would not be underestimated. They had proven that they would fight for what mattered. They had proven that they were worthy of the stars. Captain Elena Vasquez Admiral now had given the galaxy a message. The galaxy had received it, and nothing would ever be the same.